Well, hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the University of Minnesota's College and Career Readiness Consortium Career Webinar. Our focus today is on the School of Nursing, and we have just a wonderful panel that will help us understand what nursing is, why one would choose it, and the career paths of those on our panel. Thank you to all the teachers out there, the middle school students and the high school students who are with us today. My name is Jennifer Kunze, and I am the Executive Director of the College Readiness Consortium and the Director of Ramp Up to Readiness. The host of our webinar today is my colleague Maggie Bergeron, and I will turn it over to her.
Thank you so much, Jen. I want to echo Jen's welcome and also say welcome to you all. I am Maggie Bergeron. I'm the College Readiness Coordinator here in the College Readiness Consortium at the University of Minnesota. I do want to say the College Readiness Consortium hangs out in the Office of Undergraduate Education here at the University of Minnesota. The College Readiness Consortium is the home of Ramp Up to Readiness, which is a college readiness curriculum for grades 6 through 12. I want to say thank you so much to the School of Nursing for your partnership with the College Readiness Consortium and putting on this webinar. Thank you to all of you students who are watching and to their teachers and counselors who make this webinar available to the students. A couple of logistics as we get started. We'll have about 35 minutes of our questions that we've offered to our panel, and then about 10 minutes of questions that you can put in the Q&A. So as questions come up as you're listening, please put them in the Q&A feature in Zoom, and we'll get to those at the end. And I think with that, I'm going to start introducing our panel. All right, so first I'd like to introduce Anne Boyclair Fahey. And Anne, if you could tell us when you were a student at the University of Minnesota?
I was a student. I actually have 3 degrees from the University of Minnesota, 2 of them from the School of Nursing. I graduated with my master's in 1997, and at that same time became a pediatric nurse practitioner, went back in 2007 and got my doctorate. I was in the first class of the DNP program.
Amazing. And why did you want to be a nurse, Anne?
I graduated a long time ago from high school, back in the days when women did not have a lot of different opportunities. Many were secretaries, teachers, nursing. And so in 1975, when I graduated, I decided I wanted to go into nursing. So right out of high school, I went to an associate's degree in St. Mary's Junior College, which doesn't exist anymore, and got my associate's degree in nursing.
And last question, what job do you have now, or what was your last nursing job?
I'm retired. I've been retired for 3.5 years. I've worked in healthcare as a nurse or a nurse practitioner for 45 years. 44 of them were in pediatrics. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner that's retired, and I had the best job on earth.
Thank you so much, Anne. I'd like to also introduce to you Dane Brownlow. Hi, Dane.
Hello.
Can you let us know when you were a student at the University of Minnesota?
I was a student at the University of Minnesota from 2019, and then I graduated in 2023 with my bachelor's degree in nursing.
Amazing. And why did you want to be a nurse?
In high school, I had some family members in the hospital, and I saw firsthand how important nurses really are. They were with us all day, and they can truly make a very strong impact in a patient's and family member's life. And I thought that was a very honorable career path to go on to, and it's how I ended up here.
Thank you. And what job do you have now?
I currently work at the University of Minnesota Children's Hospital in their cardiovascular intensive care unit.
Perfect. Thank you, Dane. I'd like to introduce Gertrude Thomas. Hello, Gertrude. Welcome. When were you a student at the Oh, you're welcome. When were you a student at the University of Minnesota?
Thank you so much for the introduction. When I introduce myself now, I'd like to share what the meaning of my name is, if that is okay. Because I just learned that and I appreciate it so much. The meaning of Gertrude is the strength of a sword. So I just like to lay that as a ground foundational information. I was a student at the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities campus. The program I attended was a hybrid program, and what that means is we were required to be on campus 1 week per semester. And the program was a graduate level program, so I got a doctorate degree in leadership from that program. The term was from 2019, and I graduated in 2022.
Perfect. Thank you. And why did you want to be a nurse?
That is a great question. I wanted to be a nurse and a nurse leader to serve. You've heard making an impact, like one of the colleagues just stated. I wanted to impact change and make a difference. I know these sound like catchy words, but whilst growing up, I watched my mom, who was a hospital cook. She worked for over 40 years in a huge government hospital back in Liberia. That's where I originated from. And growing up, the passion that she brought to that role, the she was she, back then I did not have the exact words to articulate or describe the impression she left on me. But now looking back, I can say she approached her role as a hospital cook with service. And so that kind of impression she left on me really moved me into nursing and nursing leadership as a servant leader.
Thank you, Gertrude. And lastly, what job do you have now?
Currently, I serve as a nurse leader on the West Bank. I always say that is my daytime job because as a nurse, you do not just do one thing, right? Outside of my role as a nurse leader on the West Bank, in an inpatient unit, I also work with different councils across the entire Fairview system. So I co-lead a council that is working to build inclusion across our system. It's called Cross-Cultural Council. And I also strive for excellence as part of my work across the Fairview system. I also co-chair another nursing council called Nursing Engagements. And on this council, we strive for excellent work in nursing.
Well, thank you so much, Gertrude.
Yes.
I'd like to introduce to you Christy Wolf. Welcome, Christy.
Hi, good morning. It's so good to be with all of you. I'm so excited to talk to students and teachers.
Thank you. So when were you a student at the University of Minnesota?
I was a student, I think 2022, and then graduated in 2024. So 3 years to complete my doctoral program.
Perfect. And why did you want to be a nurse?
Well, I had been working in youth serving programs primarily with youth experiencing homelessness, so youth shelters and different things like that. And then I started to do some community outreach at a community clinic in South Minneapolis. And so I kind of got to know a little bit about healthcare there, and the nurses there suggested, hey, you should become a nurse. And I was like, okay. So I looked into it, went back to school, and I got my initial nursing education at Minneapolis, what is now called Minneapolis College.
Excellent. Thank you. And why did you want to be a nurse? Oh, that was the answer. Sorry.
I actually also want to add a little bit to that,
Yeah.
Maggie. One thing I think was important to me too is, and I will mention that some thought about becoming a nurse was about financial security, and about leading to knowing that nurses could do a lot of things and also have a good wage, good income.
Excellent. Thank you. And finally, what job do you have now, or what was your last job?
Yep. So I work as a public health nurse for Hennepin County. Public health is a big scope, but my role in it is I work with folks who have physical and mental health disabilities, and work with those folks to help them and their families get the services that they need.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christy. I also want to say we have two advisors from the University of Minnesota School of Nursing who are joining us to offer their insight and answer any questions that you all might have about getting into the School of Nursing and then what the academics are like as a student in the School of Nursing. So I'd like to welcome Oscar Diaz. Oscar, if you want to just talk about your role just really briefly in the School of Nursing.
No, absolutely. And so I I serve as not just the assistant director for the Student and Career Advancement Services here at University of Minnesota Twin Cities, but also serve as an academic advisor as well too. And very much echoing, what Dane, just shared. We help guide students who are in the BSN program, right? That's the Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. And so, it is my role to, I myself am not a nurse. So if you cut your finger, man, you hope for the best. But we will not give you sort of that medical advice. But we're here to guide you into your path into the wonderful world that is, becoming a nurse. What that involves to help support you, in your college trajectory all throughout the years. And so, it's my role to check in with students as well too, and just really lay that groundwork for support, all up until you pass that NCLEX and you become that nurse. So so that's just my role here.
Thank you, Oscar. And I also want to welcome Brittany Kuduk. And Brittany, if you want to speak briefly to your role.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. So hello, everyone, and thank you for the warm introduction, Maggie. Brittany Kuduk. I am an academic advisor for BSN students at the School of Nursing. I instruct our first year seminar with one of our directors of the program. So really working with students to get acclimated to the U of M, get prepared for their future coursework in the BSN program. I've been working within the School of Nursing for about 3 years now, and prior to that, I was a senior access consultant at the Disability Resource Center at the University of Minnesota, and I coordinated accommodations for nursing students. So kind of come to advising with that lens. I did attend the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. I majored in psychology and political science. So I'm super happy to be here, and hopefully we'll see many of you attendees in the future.
Thank you so much, Brittany, and thank you to all of our panelists. We're going to move into some questions next. And Dane, I want to toss this one to you. How did the School of Nursing shape your career path?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the U of M School of Nursing has such a great relationship with the many, many hospitals that are in the Twin Cities area. And this is super important because in your junior and senior year at the School of Nursing, you get the opportunity to go into the hospitals and work underneath nurses as a student nurse. And this kind of allows you to see so many different units, hear from your classmates about what kind of units they work on as a student nurse, and it allows you to really find the specialty that you want to work in because there's so many different things you can do as a nurse. And that led me to where I am today. I found that I had a passion for cardiac heart stuff. I liked working with pediatrics kids. So it really just shaped my whole career, allowed me to put a foot in the door at the hospital that I currently work at.
Thank you so much, Dane. Christy, would you mind coming at this one next, please?
Yeah, thank you. I would say for me at the doctoral level, it's been primarily like mentorship. It's really similar to what Dane is talking about in the sense of like, for me, mentorships, connections, getting your foot in the door at various places. We in the DNP program, the Doctor of Nursing Practice program, are kind of like a cohort model. And so it was really valuable to hear about the experiences and get the connections of our cohort. But then, I met like Gertrude, and we didn't go to school at the same time, but we've been able to connect because of having attended the same program and stuff. And then I would also say, it helped me with building confidence. I came to the doctoral program because I did want to have a greater impact on the community and folks that I serve. I have worked with marginalized and underserved populations for my entire career. And so I love working with patients and families and communities, and I want to make a bigger difference. So using and building on those strengths was really helpful in the doctoral program here.
Thank you so much, Christy. I really hear that in terms of making connections and networking, right, across your cohort and across the school. It's really nice to hear. Anne, would you mind answering this question next?
Sure. The School of Nursing I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the School of Nursing, but how I got to the School of Nursing is a little different than maybe the average person. I was working as an RN right out of college, and I was 20 when I was an RN. And I did bedside nursing at Children's Hospitals and Clinics of Minnesota, and really was enjoying what I was doing, and never thought about going back to school again. A physician that I worked with very closely saw something in me that I did not see in myself. And he suggested that I go back and get my master's degree. I should say my bachelor's degree is in textiles and clothing from the University of Minnesota. And I called the School of Nursing, never had been on to that part of the campus anyway, and looked to see what it would take for me to get in. Not having a Bachelor of Science in Nursing or a Bachelor of Arts in Nursing, I was surprised that the School of Nursing would look at my textiles and clothing degree, which is a Bachelor of Science degree. And they allowed me I was accepted into the nursing program with that undergraduate degree. And I was thrilled. That person, that physician that I worked with, I said yes to, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I took away is when someone says something about you and suggests something to you, think about it and say yes. The more often you say yes, the more successes you're going to have, as opposed to saying, no, I don't want to do that. So the School of Nursing literally shaped my entire nurse practitioner career. I did pediatric urology for 20 of the 25 years. No, 25 years I did. And then I got into some management. I was the senior director of advanced practice providers. And those are nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, nurse anesthetists at Children's and also at Emory in Atlanta, where we lived for a short time. I would not have been able to take those roles without a master's and my doctorate. So the School of Nursing has literally shaped the last half of my career. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anne. And finally, Gertrude, it's your turn.
Sure. I know there are high school or middle school students under the sound of my voice this morning, but I just want to emphasize that the decision to go back to school after getting a bachelor's and a master's degree to get a doctorate degree in nursing was the best decision I've ever made. What the program did for me was to help me I had values in me already operating as a nurse or working at the bedside, but I did not have that structure and the ideas on how to implement those values that were burning inside of me. And that was what this leadership program did for me. It empowered me. It helped me to find my voice and to use my voice to create change. It gave me structure. It gave me strategies to move the needle in the right direction. So if you have passion, if you are a high school student or a middle school student under the sound of my voice this morning, you are that kind of student that when you're on the playground or in the lunchroom, you're speaking up for your friends. You have that thing in you that is called advocacy building up even from your time in middle school and high school. Now, you do not have a strategy to make that work in your work environment. I would encourage you to. There's so many paths you can take in nursing, but as you go further and land, if you do land in this area, it gives you all of the strategies you know to take calculated risk, to take action that will implement change. So in short, the School of Nursing gave me the know-how to do those things that were already valuable to me. And that's what I do. When you do that kind of stuff, work does not look like work anymore because it is your passion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gertrude. Thank you, everyone. I'm so inspired after hearing each of you speak to how the School of Nursing shaped you and your career path. And so I also want to say, I'm seeing some folks raising their hands, and I do want to encourage you that if you do have a question, please do put it in the Q&A. And we'll look at those once all the panelists have addressed the 4 questions that we've offered to them. So our next question, and we're going to start with Christy with this one. What do you find most rewarding about being a nurse? What do you find most challenging, and why?
This one is the greatest and hardest question. Okay, so my favorite has been, working with people. I've already kind of talked about this before, with people, families, communities. As we'll talk about in a little bit, nurses are everywhere. We do everything, and so that has been my greatest joy. Also, just one of the things I think we don't often think about when we're working with individuals is the impact, the ripple effect that it has when you're working with an individual, and how that might then shape how maybe then their family, takes care of each other and that sort of thing. And then I also think, and the hardest part, I would say, and what again brought me to the doctoral program, is that it is challenging to see some of the disparities or like inequities that are happening with people related to care, healthcare, and just different things that impact them in their lives. And so it's challenging to see that, and at the same time, it inspires me to continue to want to do this work and to help lift people up and to not ignore that those things are happening. And so. But it is challenging, and so then we do kind of also need to lean on each other and get support from each other to kind of keep doing this work that is so impactful.
Thank you so much, Christy. Gertrude, I'd like to toss this question to you next.
Yes, so I think one of the most rewarding things I'll start from being a staff nurse, which means I took care of patients directly at the bedside. The human connection that I built there when I worked at the bedside, that connection I made with families across all of the different areas I work. Because when I worked as a staff nurse, I started off in a heart unit, and then I went on to intensive care unit, and then I went on to surgical unit, and most of my work was in intensive care. During that time, there were a lot of different human situations that we dealt with. It was most rewarding when I sat with parents whose kids were going through trauma. It could be a motor vehicle accident or gunshot or any kind of event that they were going through. Just holding those parents' hands, looking into their eyes, and telling them that we're doing the best for your loved one, for your child. And sometimes I didn't even have to speak a word. We connected on a human level, eye to eye, I being the nurse and that parent being that person right at the bedside of that patient. So I kind of missed that direct human connection, but as a nurse leader, I still stop and visit families when they're walking down the hall. I stop when the doors are open. I check to see how are you doing? Who are you visiting? You have a loved one here in the hospital. And in addition to caring and engaging with family members, right now I have a great opportunity to engage with the staff that work with me. I see my staff not only as people that work for me, I see them as my peers. I engage with them so that we together can have our values aligned. We will work together to achieve a common goal. Because when you work with people and they see the importance of what you're doing, to make that change, to make that shift, and to have those great outcomes comes so much easier. So that those are the rewarding things I've had with nursing. The most challenging thing has been sometimes in reality, the outcomes are not seeing the patients walk out the door. Sometimes the outcome is the news that you have to share that in the middle of the night, things did not go well. The outcome was not what the family was expecting, but those are reality. And we have the opportunity as nurses to guard families through those hard times as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gertrude.
Yes.
I really appreciate hearing that. Anne, I'd like
Yes.
for you to answer next, please.
What I found the most rewarding, and again, I did pediatrics for my career, was just seeing very sick kids turn the corner and feel better. And once they do that, they want to start playing. And playing is their children's work. And so seeing that occur, and I felt very fortunate that we did not see a lot of death in the clinical arena that I was in, but we had one in my many years of working in pediatric urology, which doesn't have a high mortality rate. So that I found very rewarding. A couple things I found very challenging. As a nurse practitioner in Minnesota, we are fortunate, along with 25 other states, to have what's called autonomous practice. So we work under our own nursing license. We are not supervised by a physician, and there's no responsibility that a physician has for us. With that, though, in Minnesota, especially in the Children's Minnesota system, we are expected to work. We have to really master our knowledge in the clinical arena that we are in, because we're working as a provider for patients. And I think that's one of the things where you realize you need to master your craft, you need to master your clinical expertise, so that you are really respected amongst your other clinical colleagues, meaning physicians, other nurse practitioners, physicians assistants. The other thing I found really challenging is I was asked to be, again, I said yes. I have a habit of saying yes. I became the interim chief nursing officer for Children's Minnesota in January of 2021 for 5 months. If you remember that era, we were still in the throes of COVID, and we were just starting the vaccines. And we had a lot of pushback from some of our nurses in the system that didn't want to necessarily get the vaccine. That and the financial challenges that COVID had on any healthcare system. And as filling in for 5 months, I was the interim chief nursing officer, and it was a big uphill climb. And so I respect a lot of upper level leadership and what they have to go through, and really kind of understand both sides of that line. So that's what I found challenging, and I was thrilled to be able to rise to those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. And Dane, it's your turn.
Absolutely. Just yesterday, the unit that I work on is a cardiovascular intensive care unit for kids. So a lot of our patients are little babies. They're born, they have a problem with their heart, and they come to us, and then we do surgery, we fix them up, and hopefully they can go home afterwards. But just yesterday, I saw a patient who I had 2 years ago who received a heart transplant, and she was very, very sick for quite a while. But yesterday, I saw her run onto the unit with her younger brother, and she was smiling, she was laughing, and just seeing a patient who was very, very ill, who probably would not have even survived without a heart transplant, running around and smiling, and it was just so rewarding to see that. And I see that all the time in my career. Then again, nursing is very challenging. You're taking care of often some very sick patients for 12-hour shifts at a time, and you're often putting those patients' needs, their well-beings, before your own. And that can be very challenging, and you have to make sure that you set time aside for yourself, for your own mental health and your well-being. But looking at the rewards, it just vastly outweighs the challenges. The outcomes that you can see, the impacts you can truly make on families for their entire life. They'll remember you because they're going through potentially the hardest and worst days of their life, and you can sit there and you can hold their hand and talk to them and comfort them. And I think that outweighs any challenges that I may see at work.
Thank you so much, everyone. I feel like I'm going to say this a lot today already, but I'm so inspired by hearing each of you speak to the rewards and the challenges of being a nurse. So thank you so much. I want to move to our next question. And I think I'm going to open this one up to whoever is ready to answer. I don't want to put any pressure on anyone to come up with kinds of nurses. But in your experience and in your knowledge, what other kinds of nurses are there besides the roles that all of you have had as nurses? And I want to open this one up to also Oscar and Brittany too, if you have any input here. And go ahead and just maybe raise your hand so people aren't talking over each other. Yeah, Christy.
No.
Oh, so you guys, this was so much fun to brainstorm yesterday. And so I made a list and I don't, so I'll just share. I worked, I'm going to look a little bit to my notes on the right here, but I worked when I was first a nurse for a short time at the bedside. I also did some heart stuff there, cardiac unit for about a year. And I've worked for clinics before. So you all have probably seen nurses in clinics. I also worked for a short time at a health insurance provider. So and one of the things that I did as when I was working with a clinic is a role which is called care coordination. And so that's kind of like work in chronic disease management. So I helped people with diabetes and heart failure and those kinds of things be able to manage their day-to-day life. And I also did the coordination between like when a person would go to the hospital and then maybe go to a transitional care unit or something before they went home and all of those kinds of transitions. But I wanted to say there's also, okay, so there's like nursing, and these are in no particular order, just my brainstorm. Nursing homes, rehab facilities, school nurses, of course, but then also AI, tech companies, inventors, entrepreneurs, medical devices, and flight nurses like those ones in the helicopters, faculty, teachers, legal, military nurses. Nurses are on cruise ships, oil rigs, and hospice, end of life care, urgent care. Some become politicians, comedians, influencers, and other parts of like public health where I'm at, planning and response related to disasters and disease outbreaks, things like that. And then there's of course our advanced practitioners, nurse midwives, nurse anesthetists, nurse practitioners, those kinds of things. So that was that. It was. Oh, and did I mention planetary health? That too, taking care of our planet and our globe. So that was the best part of this whole thing was just thinking about we are everywhere and it's so fantastic. You can do anything with this.
Incredible. Gertrude.
Yes, I just want to tag onto what Christy just shared. And there are also nurse executives, nurse scientists, nurse historians. I know a lot of those people that I just named nationwide, nurse midwives, nurse anesthetists. So you can become a nurse that work in the operation room and give patients sedations and medications when they're going through surgery. You can become a nurse historian and pull all of nursing history together and work on data to improve outcome, to improve what happens to patients across different settings. You can become a nurse scientist and plug in those data and work with AI as a nurse informatics. And so the long range of directions and specialties you can go into as a nursing is like there is no end to this. Is such a career path and profession that is so rewarding. There's just no end to this. And if you are interested, there is something on social media. I know high school students, especially, you're all into social media. There is an organization called Nurses You Should Know. And this organization showcases different nurses across the spectrum. So if you can look that up on Instagram or whatever social media platform you go into, check out Nurses You Should Know. You'll find out the different kind of specialties in nursing that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Gertrude. Anne, I see your hand is up too.
Sure. I just want to tag on to what they just mentioned. And I know the words that like work-life balance is really, really important to all of us. And one of the things that nursing allows is the ability to work part-time. And there are very, very few nurses in the hospital systems that work full-time, meaning scheduled 5 days a week, 8 hours, or 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts. And the reason for that is it's very demanding care. that nurses provide. They are physically, and it's just our 24-hour care. So for flexibility, nursing is outstanding. If you want a job where I don't want to have to pay for daycare or much daycare, I want to work the opposite shift of my partner or spouse, you can do that. That's what my husband did and I did for 12 years. I worked half-time, he worked full-time. We both did shift work. He worked for an airline, and we need very minimal daycare. And these are the nuts and bolts of kind of how you want your life to look and all the pressures that are on your life once you have a family. So I think this is one of the reasons why nursing is so flexible and it's vast. Nurses, as you just heard, you can work in all kinds of areas. Even the airlines hire nurses when they have to decide to land a plane. Because there's a medical thing on board, they're communicating with the health department in their airline. So it's vast, it's flexible. And if you choose to work in the Twin Cities hospitals, they have what's called, the RNs are under Minnesota Nurses Association. That's the union that has been negotiated, the salaries, the times of the people work, et cetera. And there's a pension involved. And I know this stuff is of interest to students. I want to have a secure job. I want us to have a secure retirement. These are things to think about when you are considering working as a nurse. If you work in the Twin Cities hospitals and even up in Essentia in Duluth, those are union jobs as well. So that's another thing to consider when you're thinking of going into nursing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. Dane.
I really want to build off of what Anne was saying about the flexibility of nursing. I know it kind of deviates from the question itself, but just for an example, I am a full-time nurse and I work 60 hours every 2 weeks. And I work both day shift and night shift. And after 3 weeks of working, I'll then have an entire week off where I don't have any work. And that truly allows for me to travel, for me to fill my cup back up through self-care. And I think that's something to really consider when you're in high school and middle school is like, what kind of flexibility does my job have? Am I going to be working every single day, 5 days a week until 5 p.m.? Or can I have days off where I can go travel, go on vacation, and do all sorts of stuff? But in terms of the question itself, I'm sure you could Google or ask ChatGPT to like name 500 different jobs that nurses can do, and you'll have 500 answers with still some left over. There's truly just so many things you can do. Some things that my friends have been doing is travel nursing, where you can go to another state, potentially even a different country, and you can sign a contract to work for 3 months, 6 months, a year in California, in Seattle, anywhere where they need help for like nursing help. And I think it's just such a great way to broaden your horizons when you do become a nurse and try different things and experience different things.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. I just want to toss this to Oscar and Brittany. Do you have anything you would like to add to this question? And if not, that's okay too.
Yeah, I was just looking at it and reflecting. So in our program, we definitely do a lot of exploration of the different types of nursing. We have 12 specialties, I believe, for DNP and PhD options. Let's see, we have things like mental health practitioners, nurse anesthetists, midwifery, health information sciences, public health. So there's a lot of options. A lot of times when individuals are going for a PhD in nursing, they're interested in doing research and becoming nurse educators. And then I do believe that all of our faculty do hold DNPs and have been or currently are practicing nurses. So one of the things that people may not always consider would be being a professor. So I just wanted to add that one in because our faculty who have been or are currently nurses are really fantastic. And I always appreciate the lens that they come into our workspace with.
Thank you, Brittany. All right, let's move on to our next question. This is our last question that we have for our panelists, and then we'll turn to the questions that our participants are adding. And we have very many questions, so keep them coming. Jen is combing through them, and we'll select a few for the panelists to answer. For this last question, Anne, I'm wondering if you would begin. And the question is, what advice would you give to middle and high school students interested in nursing?
Great. I think there's a couple things I would think that you should think about. Becoming a nurse takes some advanced planning, and the courses that you need to take in high school are going to be science-based, math-based, and take the highest level of those courses you can while you're in high school. That'll open doors for you as you are applying to different universities. Of course, we'd all love to have you come to the University of Minnesota, but we all know that that's probably not going to happen because there's only so many students that come per year. So you're looking at collectively a lot of different schools and some, again, nuts and bolts, which I think are one of the things that we need to think about. You're going to take the same RN exam once you graduate, where you can get your license if you go to a state school or if you go to a very expensive private school. So if you are having to fund your own education, you don't need to go to the fanciest school. You just need to go to a school that gives you an outstanding education. And those are located all across Minnesota, Wisconsin. There's reciprocity, et cetera. The other thing that I would really, really have you think twice about is not going to a for-profit university. Those are the online programs that take your money and don't actually give you the degree that you really need, a degree that is worth its weight. You can look those up and read about them online, but your bricks and mortar schools like the University of Minnesota, other state schools in the Twin Cities are going to give you an outstanding education. You're all going to be taking the same exam when you've completed the program, and that's you're going to need a BSN, a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and you're going to take the RN NCLEX exam once you've finished. That gives you your nurse license, and that's what you need to be able to practice. The programs that we talked about today, a lot of those are master's or doctoral programs. Becoming a nurse practitioner, a nurse anesthetist, all requires an advanced degree. You need to start with your bachelor's degree. And the good news is if you wanted to become an advanced practice provider, you can work as an RN while you're doing so. And I think that's the other beauty of a lot of healthcare programs. Mean you have to stop working, but you can work because of that flexibility that nursing job allows you, is you can work different shifts and still go to school at the same time. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. Gertrude, I'd like to toss this one to you next. What advice would you give to these students?
Students, I want you to hear me and hear me clearly. Wherever you are, your life experiences, your background, your financial status, or having or not having, who you are really matters in nursing. And you can bring all of that richness into the profession to change someone's life and make a difference if that is what you want to do. For nursing leadership, that's what it's all about. That is truly what it's all about, impacting people's lives and making a difference. That's my words for students.
Thank you, Gertrude. Dane, what advice do you have for the students?
Yeah, I think back to my time in high school and middle school, and one of the things that I made sure that I did is I was involved in nearly all of the extracurricular activities that my school offered, and I really built my resume in like while I was thinking for my college applications. So I was on student council, NHS, everything. I just tried to gain as much experience as I possibly could. And I also took advantage of the college and the schools and AP classes that my school offered. And that allowed me, when I got to college, to not have to take biology in college because I took it in high school. Some of my classmates didn't have to take chemistry in college because they took it in high school, etc. So just if your school offers those things, I would definitely recommend you look into that. Another thing is potentially looking into getting your nursing assistant's license. It allows you to get your foot in the door in a clinical setting in a nursing home and see if you really like nursing, if you enjoy, spending your time in the hospital. And it gives you that really valuable experiences that colleges look for on college applications and in interviews and everything like that. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Dane. And Christy, what advice do you have for these students?
This is another great question, and I just want to say you're here, so you're already doing it. This is great that you're beginning to learn about nursing and kind of what it takes to be a nurse, the different types of nursing. And I want to build off of some of the things that my colleagues have said. I would say you may want to talk to people in your life who are nurses or people who might know nurses and can connect you to maybe to begin to learn about some of the types of nursing that you're interested in. And maybe some volunteer opportunities, volunteering at a hospital or a nursing care facility or something like that. And like Dane said, there are so many schools now that offer directly the nursing assistant classes and programs in combination with local community and technical colleges. I would also say that again, it is really important to think about that there's folks from all different kinds of experiences and backgrounds who are nurses. I just want to share a little bit of my story because I think there might be somebody listening who would relate. I didn't think that I was going to even finish high school. I had no idea. I didn't know any nurses. I had no plans for college in my life, and it was never something I thought of. I was living in shelters and foster care as a teenager, and it was a teacher. So thank you, teachers. Teacher in a high school that I went to that suggested I do what is called the PSEO program in Minnesota. I'm not sure how all that works now, but it was basically allowing me to take college credits while I was still in high school. My first degree was not in nursing, it was in something else, but I was able to go to the community college and kind of get a head start. So I was a first generation student, estranged from my family, didn't really know anyone who went to college and still was able to do it because there is support out there. So just understand, reach on the folks, the caring adults in your lives to help you kind of get where you are because you can do this whether it's this or something else. But I just wanted to let you know that there are many paths to getting to where you want to go and you'll find that path.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists for that advice. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to some questions that are coming in. Jen, do you have something for the panels? Oh, Jen, you're muted. Sorry.
We have so many great questions, and I'm trying to group them together so we can answer several at one time. So let's start first with our U of M folks. Students want to know what the life of a nursing student is like, and their concern is, can you do other things? Can you be an athlete? Can you be in the marching band? Can you have a social life while going to nursing school?
I can I can jump in that one. And that's a wonderful question. The answer is you will never see sunlight ever again. I'm joking. I'm joking. Uh, no, one of the things that is this, and you're absolutely right. And so I'm seeing a lot of these questions in the chat of, what would this program look like, what courses and such. So I'll backtrack a little bit and then I'll get into that overall kind of question. So for our middle schoolers, you're probably wondering like, how are some of the things that I can really kind of do now? And to my colleague Gertrude, what she just shared, if you're thinking about someone right now that you want to take care of, if there's someone next to you right now that you want to take care of, you're already halfway through, right? This nursing is that praxis of care. It's that exercise of love and taking care of one another. And so if you have that in your heart and mind, then you're on the right track. But while you're in middle school, you really want to pay attention to your life sciences, your overall math. You want to develop, those study skills and time management. You really want to sort of kind of prepare for that, for that academic career. that is, that is going to present itself soon. And for my high school students, as Dean shared, absolutely, take advantage of those AP courses, your biologies, your chems, um, anything that's going to help kind of prepare you to reach out to your instructors, reach out to your counselors as as well too. But one of the things that I will share is this, right? The BSM program here at the Twin Cities is a 4-year structured program, and there's 2 pathways, y'all. It's a freshman admitting uh, uh, school, which means that straight from high school, if you graduate, you are able to apply and get in or be admitted to the BSM program, but it is 4 years from start to finish. I saw a question there from from a student who said, "What if I take a lot of courses or a lot of those fundamentals or generals, like all those beginning question courses that you would." Uh, that is a wonderful, yes, way of getting that edge of addressing a lot of those courses, but you're still in those 4 years. So that is that or rather what to expect. Now, I will say this though. Remember, I said 2 pathways. There's that freshman admitting, right, straight from high school, you begin. But then there are also students who will take their generals or fundamentals at, let's say, another community college or institution, and then they'll transfer over, those credits over to, over to the U. Now, for transfer students, you have another pathway. That is the BSN pathway through Rochester, right? This is in Rochester, Minnesota. That's a 3-year program, right? Because again, you're transferring over, and that's 3 years, but that's also housed over in Rochester, right? So keep that in mind as you're really looking at what are those kind of options, and really, if for those of you who have extension to Google right now, you can just Google BSN program prerequisites or BSN program UNM Twin Cities, and that'll take you right to the page in which I'm kind of sharing with you, and you'll see that kind of laid out in terms of what you need to do. I saw another question about is it too late to apply? Well, November 1st was that application deadline. But one really important thing though is for first year students or straight from high school, really target that GPA. It's a really competitive program. So we're talking about a 3.7 GPA and above. We're also talking about, a holistic review, which is exactly kind of like what we have been talking about. It's not just about your GPA. It's not about, those overall courses. It really is, about you, what you want to do. What are some of those experiences that have brought you, to the wonderful world that is nursing? For our high schoolers who are listening, if you're like, well, what if I have like a part-time job and I'm like a server? Does that still count? And I'm going to tell you, yes, it does, because you're working with populations. It's really, again, that service aspect. It's really how you care for one another. And you would be surprised, what that leadership or extension of can really do. So don't just feel as if you're like Oscar, I don't got what it takes. I don't have enough. Yeah, you do. And so, once again, as you kind of prepare for, for a lot of these, when you're looking at the admissions, prerequisites, or when you're looking at how to kind of prepare, keep that in mind as you begin that overall kind of conversation. So, and then I'll pop it over to to my colleague Brittany, see if there's anything that we can kind of connect or that I missed.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Kind of answering the question about student involvement and being a part of, like Greek life, sports, things like that, doing maybe minors or doing a double major, all of that type of stuff. We definitely have students who are very, very involved on campus, part of student government. We have students that are on the dance team, that are on the rowing team. Many, many sports. Haven't had any football players specifically, but as you're going along through the program, we do a lot of really mindful coordination of your coursework and the curriculum. It is more heavy, I would say, in the sophomore year and the junior year in terms of class hours that you're in, and then a little bit heavier in the senior year with the practicum hours that you're doing and kind of your clinical experience out in the community. So sometimes when students are navigating multiple responsibilities when it comes to different programs or sports. Some students have had to make difficult decisions about prioritizing nursing school, but for the most part, I have not seen any students have too much difficulty with that, like not being able to make all of it work. And we do have a lot of nursing specific opportunities for involvement too. It's a very, very cohort-based program. So you start with your classmates in the first year and you are with them for the rest of the time. The nursing classes are, of course, quite a bit smaller than your sort of general liberal education courses would be with that faculty to student ratio. So lots of hands-on support and guidance along the way to make sure that you are able to have a fruitful, formative experience that's really meaningful for you.
Thank you both. And just for the students listening, a cohort model means that you're moving as a group through the program. So you're not off on your own in other classes, but you come together as a pack, which is a really nice way to learn. There are a lot of questions in our Q&A about differences between a nurse anesthetist. How do you get that? How much are they paid? And all that stuff we won't have time to look at today, but I do encourage you to go to Career One Stop on any browser, and you can type in the different types of nursing and any other career you can think of. It's run by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They know a lot of information, so that's where I would encourage students to go for looking at those detailed information. I know we're running out of time, and there were, almost to my surprise, there was a question that I wanted our nurses to handle, and maybe our U of M folks can weigh in as well. Students are concerned that nurses are sometimes treated poorly by families or even by doctors. And how do you build up the skills to deal with that? And I'm wondering if you are taught any of that in the nursing school. Can anyone take that? Gertrude, please go ahead.
Yes, I can take that as a nurse leader. I think that's where culture comes into play. And that's where the role of the nurse leader impacting the work culture really comes into play. There was an old adage that nurses eat their young. The unit that I currently work on, I started from the ground up, and the intention with which I applied, even for the role to lead this unit, was to build a culture, to establish a culture of inclusion, to establish a culture of excellence, and to establish a culture that facilitates students' learning. So on this unit, there is no nurses eating their young. We nurture our young. So to answer the question, it depends on the culture of the unit or the environment that you're going to work in. Most systems or most hospitals and units have gone away from that nurses eating the young and the old way of doing things, and the doctor being the boss over you. Listen, students, the doctors are not your bosses in current day nursing. They are your peers. Should I say that again for those in the back of the room? The doctors are not your bosses. They are your peers. From working through different nursing environments up to the intensive care, nurses can be of such value to doctors that the doctors seek out your nursing input. So if you're considering a profession in nursing and you've heard that nurses are treated bad by doctors, that is not happening in the current day, especially not here at UMMC. It is not happening because nurse leaders don't take that. When it comes to families, there are challenges, and the things we hear on the news happening with healthcare workers being attacked by family members and the, just the mere number of violence that is happening to healthcare workers as a whole right now, there is, yes, certainly a risk for that, like it is with any job. Should I say nationwide or universally? It seems like everyone is on edge right now in the whole world, not only here in the United States. And so the way we approach each other, the way we converse with each other can bring down that tenseness and that escalation. It can de-escalate that reaction that we might get if we're approaching the situation differently. We learn to be empathetic as nurses. We learn to see other human beings like ourselves. And when we approach these patients and family members from that level and through that lens, most of the time they understand, they will talk, they will say loud things. They come back to you and say, I'm sorry, it's because of the stress I was going through. In addition to that, sometimes that is not always the case, but we do have security trained on the standby for us as well. Even though we try to de-escalate, I don't know how I can bring down de-escalate. We try to de-escalate situations like that, but nurses have right at the nursing station, they carry a button. If they feel threatened verbally or aggressively, in any way they feel threatened, it's just to push of the button and you have security there to help you figure things out. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you so much, Gertrude. And in time-wise, we're about done. And I would love to stay on and answer all of the questions that are coming through, but we do have to wrap up. I want to say thank you so much to our panel, Gertrude, Dane, Christy, Anne, Oscar, and Brittany. Thank you so much for sharing your immeasurable knowledge and wisdom and advice and experience. We are so grateful. I'm so grateful that you shared this time with us and also that you're in the world working as nurses. You're very inspiring. And I hope it was helpful for all of our students out there to hear your experiences. I just want to say to the students and teachers, we're on Instagram. The College Readiness Consortium is on Instagram, and also check out our website, collegeready.umn.edu. I want to say also we have 2 upcoming career webinars. We have an ROTC career webinar sometime in the winter 2026. We have a theater arts and dance career webinar coming up in February. Please find us. Thank you so much for being here. We're so grateful that we were able to connect in this way today. Take care.